Welcome to Destination Business Freedom, hosted by Pat Mancuso. Join us as we explore success strategies and hacks from leading entrepreneurs, helping you bridge the gap between financial success and personal freedom. Your journey starts here.
Thanks for joining us today on the Destination Business Freedom. I am Pat Mancuso, and I am the host of our podcast where we interview thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and business owners who have exited their business or are on that journey. My goal is to help small to medium-sized business owners close the gap between their finances and their freedom, and ultimately define that destination, that exit, if you may, whatever that looks like to them. The episode today is brought to you by the Mancuso Consulting Group, where we are committed to helping entrepreneurs and business owners close that gap between their finances and freedom. We've created a 360 view of a business owner through what we call the Mancuso method. And that is an opportunity for any business owner to answer 10 very simple yet very powerful questions. And that assessment is going to allow that business owner upon completion to schedule a call with us, with me, and we're going to go through those 10 areas. And the guarantee is this: you spend 30 to 45 minutes with me, and if we can't find you at least $10,000 worth of value, I'm going to write you a check personally for $500 on the spot. That's how confident we are in that process. So when you're ready to move forward towards your finances and moving towards that freedom, go to www.themancuso.com and take our assessment and schedule a call with Pat today. Now, I am super excited about our guest today, and this individual is going to help us all close that gap between our finances and our freedom. I want to introduce Brian Kurtz to you. Now, Brian, as I understand, has had two careers. First one, and only two, which is kind of interesting because most people have 10 or 12, but right. Brian is an amazing talent, so he's only needed two. But the first one spanned 34 years as a force behind Boardroom, an iconic publisher and direct marketer. The second as the founder of Titans Marketing, a direct marketing and education and coaching company. Titans Marketing is known for exclusive mastermind groups, an array of classic books, and swipe files. We're going to get some definition on what that is. Swipe files, Brian has published and created as he's authored 2 books himself. During both careers, he's been a serial direct marketer with a foundation in eternal truths, I love that, and fundamentals of direct response, while being committed to over-delivering, I think there's a book in there, over almost 4 decades. So, Brian, welcome to the show today.
Oh, thank you, Pat. I've heard so many good things about you through our mutual friend, Jeremy Weiss, and, I love the premise of this podcast because the idea of, destination business freedom is like what you do to be. That's why you're an entrepreneur. That's why you're a business owner. That's why you're even a CEO in a company, which I can talk about as well. Because I think that, freedom, money doesn't buy you everything. It's important, but freedom is everything. And the word freedom is just such a powerful word. And to have that as the premise of this podcast got me very excited to be here.
Well, Brian, one of the things, and I know you know this, is that, most people get into businesses almost by happenstance, certainly entrepreneurs. Either they were working for somebody and said, hey, I don't want to have somebody telling me what to do.
I don't want to work for the man.
Yeah, I don't want to work for the man. And then, or they inherit a business, let's say, and they've been in a business or an organization for a while, and the owner or founder wants to exit. And yet what I have found as an entrepreneur is that there's not, like, you don't go to entrepreneurial school, right? I mean, now we're starting to see more of what they call entrepreneurship in the colleges and such. But
even have things like a strategic coach with Dan Sullivan is like the ultimate entrepreneur PhD kind of thing.
Correct.
It's not a literal PhD, but yeah, you're absolutely right. It's sort of like, back when I was in college, like direct marketing, which is a subset of marketing or general advertising, wasn't really taught. So you got to go out and find your education, basically. And with people like you around, people can find it, which is great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and I noticed in doing a little bit of research prior to our call today, direct marketing, and you have certainly followed and have relationships with some great people. And one of the common ones that I follow is Dan Kennedy, and almost the godfather, if you may, of direct marketing.
Yeah.
So let's jump in, Brian. I always like to start with the journey of the individual I'm talking with as the entrepreneur themselves, and talk about those experiences that they've had, and kind of tie some things into that. So, like, where did you start? The first journey was 34 years ago. How did you get into the boardroom? Like, how did that start?
Yeah, so it was actually almost 45 years ago, because I've been
That's
on my own for like 8 years. But the thing, when I came to boardroom, and it was I wouldn't call it a sleepy company by any means, but it was a small entrepreneurial, gritty company run by an entrepreneur, Marty Edelston, took his life savings to build this business. And I got there, I fell into it. I'm not gonna deny that. But the thing that my journey has had that is not as typical is that I had an entrepreneurial journey. And what I mean by that is that I came in as an employee. I proved my worth basically over the first 10 years, became an equity partner in the company, and an owner. And in fact, we almost put the company up for sale at one point in the year 2000. We backed off on it, which was, I'll tell you that story as a sidebar in a minute, because I think it's important for your audience.
Absolutely.
But I think I was fortunate because it was a learning organization. It was an organization that always looked to the outside for the best consultants, the best list people, the best copywriters, the best everything, and bought everything a la carte as opposed to using agencies or anything like that, which was to my advantage because I got exposed to the best of the best in everything. I mean, I was just in a great place at the right time.
Sure.
Made the most of it. And I would say that anybody can do it because, if you can recognize your surroundings in a way that's profound, you can say, okay, this looks like a job, but it's not. And that was really how I started. Now, it was a job to start.
Right.
I saw that there was so much available like talent from the outside to teach me and mentor me. And, I always say you don't choose your mentors choose you.
Mm-hmm.
And I found these mentors who were working for us, and I would go out of my way to do stuff for them based on my expertise. I became a list expert, whether that's of interest to anybody, but it's an important element of direct response marketing. And by being a list expert, I could help these top consultants with their list work in their companies. And in return, they mentored me. I didn't say,
Right.
Will you be my mentor? And I get that all the time now. People send you an email. It's like, will you be my mentor? It's like, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
You got to like be there, on the battlefield with them, do stuff for them,
Sure.
give them 100-0, complete. You give of yourself, contribute of yourself with no expectation of return. And the returns you get are astounding. So that was like the early part of my career was basically from employee to like partner and it was all entrepreneurial where I was able to create products. I was able to, Marty was a hands-on entrepreneur, Marty Edelston, but as time went on, he started giving me more freedom. And It's another lesson that, wherever you are in your career, early or middle or late, if someone else has the purse strings of how you get paid, make sure they know who you are, what you're doing,
Right.
how valuable you are. And I did that from day one, not to show off, not to tell them, hey, I'm here, Marty, but I just did it on the job. And
Yeah.
he noticed it. He got me involved in more things as time went on. And he sort of had no choice but to make me a partner in the business. And then just the sidebar I was mentioning before, the idea of putting a company up for sale, and this was in 2000. So the company started in 1972. I got there in 1981. And in 2000, Marty was frustrated. He didn't know where the company was going. He said he went to an investment banker and said, let's see who would buy this company for $100 million.
Huh.
And he went out and we got, 72 potential buyers. It was like, it taught me so much about not, we didn't exit, but we could have exited and we didn't. And the thing, but I learned is that when you put your company on the market and don't sell it, that sometimes is as important as selling it, because then you find out what people would have wanted, what they didn't want. We found out what parts of the company were really worthwhile. And over time, we got rid of some of that dead weight in the company because we put it up for sale and then didn't sell. And I saw another company who was a rival of ours, who had a company that had 4 diverse divisions. And the guy wanted to sell the whole thing, lock, stock, and barrel. And he couldn't, because there were 4. And when he went to 4 different buyers, he made more money than he would have from one buyer, because each buyer bought the niche, so to speak. And they weren't as nichey as I'm saying, but they were niches. There was a financial niche, a B2B niche, a consumer health niche. So I learned so much, even though I never exited. And I know this is a podcast about exiting. I learned so much about how to exit if I wanted to, how not to exit. And so that was really so important during the journey at Boardroom. And then when I left Boardroom in 2015, Marty had passed away. He had 3 kids in the company. I was not one of them. Although I was probably, I don't like to say this too often, but I was maybe the kid he wanted, but we won't say anything more than that. But he loved his kids and I loved them too. But it was time to leave. I had gotten equity out of the business. I was fine with it. And that began my real entrepreneurial journey. And it was obviously easier to go out on my own when I already had seen a role model for entrepreneurship, Marty. I had been involved in maybe selling and not selling. I had been involved in every aspect. And Marty had a stroke, I think, 12 years before he died. And I kind of took over the company completely.
Sure.
Marketing side. And we were a marketing-driven company. And that was like the experience of a lifetime. Marty was still there. He was giving me support, everything. And I had a great staff, and I didn't do it myself, believe me. But it was a fantastic second journey within Boardroom that told me that going out on my own was going to be easy. And I also followed the advice, part of my journey was following the advice of one of my early mentors, Jay Abraham, who's in the same school as Dan Kennedy. And most direct marketers came off of one of those trees in the 1980s. It was the Dan Kennedy tree or the Jay Abraham tree. I was more on the Jay Abraham tree, although I know Kennedy well and I've done events with him. But Jay Abraham wrote the foreword for my book, Over Deliver. And with Jay taught me early on, and he said, when you doing something of significance, whether it's run a company, create products, create services, creating marketing funnels, whatever you do, there's a time to do it and there's a time to teach it. And so the second phase of my, that's why I said I had 2 careers.
Yeah.
One was the doing it, and now I'm teaching what I did. And actually, Jay Abraham was even more, stern about it. He said, you have a moral obligation to teach it.
Right.
And so I've always been about contribution. I've always been about, my big why is probably, contributing to connect, which is not networking. People used to call me a master networker. I hate the word networking. Networking implies, the most Facebook friends and, quantity over quality. But I'm into quality of relationships. I always say that, no one has ever, people refund transactions. They don't refund relationships.
Yeah.
And the building of my relationship capital is a thing I'm most proud of throughout my 40 plus years in the business. That's a quick snapshot of my 2 careers, but the launching of Titans Marketing was really easy in a way, because I knew that I could put 25 people in a mastermind group at $25,000 each and have a business, because I was going to teach those 25 companies everything that I had learned, plus bring in all the masters that I had learned from. And the people who were in the group were also masters in their own right. And it was a model that was so, I don't want to say it was easy, but it was simple to put together. and I had a $500,000 business immediately.
Right. Right.
And then I built on that with products. As you said swipe files. Swipe files are a really important part of the direct marketing business because I always say stealing is a felony and stealing smart is an art. And a swipe file, getting swipe files and getting, the best work from the best copywriters and the best marketers is the way you learn. It's the way you adapt. You're not stealing,
Right.
you're adapting, you're innovating on someone else's invention. And that's what I do. That's what I've done my whole career.
I love it.
And then I also have the rights to a book, Breakthrough Advertising, which is one of the greatest books ever written on copywriting, marketing, and human behavior, written by a copywriter by the name of Gene Schwartz in 1966. The book is 100% relevant, exactly as he penned it in 1966. I've sold 15,000 copies of it in 75 countries. Gene's been on a long time, but I've been keeping his name alive in a big way. That's kind of what I'm about. I'm about leaving legacy for my mentors and the people that got me here. And so that's my second career, but it was all based on the first career.
So, and wow, Brian, I mean, that journey is amazing. And there's so many things that you mentioned that, kind of tie into this conversation. Like the first one, you mentioned is we talked, you talked about the exit, and that's what our show is about. And that is absolutely true. And yet most people don't realize there's multiple ways to exit the business, right? And there's also multiple ways to enter a business, and you kind of experience both sides of that equation. And, our point is this, is that the preparation for that. Like, think about, you're getting in a car today, and I'm in Minnesota and I'm going to drive to Florida. Well, if I'm going to drive to Florida, I have to put an address in. Otherwise, I'll get there just knowing I got to go south, but it could be, 3 months.
Right.
And, thinking about that address in advance to really design your exit, that's the challenge. Most business owners, in fact, my feeling is 95 to 98% of them never, ever stop, slow down. And frankly, they don't even know how to calculate that.
No.
We're pretty excited. We're working on a project right now where literally we'll be able to take a business owner and, let's say they're today and they're $1 million company and they decide, that 10 years from now they want to exit. And, again, they have variable options in exiting, but we'll be able to dial forward 10 years, define their exit, whatever that number looks like to them, and then reverse engineer what they're going to need to do on a monthly basis to actually get there, whether that's adding new products, adding new companies, there's so much power in that. So I love the fact that you shared that.
It's also what you're saying is so critical because it's not just putting lipstick on a pig. A lot of people say that when you're preparing your company for exit, that you just you cut your costs, you build it up and all that. But if you have a long runway and you're thinking about it well in advance, that's critical for any sale. I'll also say this is interesting. I think you'll like this, even though it's not relevant to people who are looking only to sell their business. But
right.
There are businesses that shouldn't be sold. Like, I'll say that my Titans marketing business, when I launched it, I didn't know what assets I would have. Most of the assets were me. Because I was teaching, I was doing masterminds. Now I have some products. I have books, I have swipe files, I have stuff. But it was interesting because I went into it just the opposite. Instead of planning for an exit, I was planning for no exit. I was planning for a wind down at some point in the future, whenever that might be, and I'd be happy with that. But you have to know what business you're in to do that.
Yeah.
If there are people that have a business like mine, like Titans Marketing, even without the products, and they think it's going to be unbelievable as a selling, that they'll be able to sell it easily.
Right.
Not so easy when you don't have really any tangible assets and you aren't planning for it, as you said. So there's so much involved in positioning a company for sale. And I'll tell you, boardroom, when we put the company up for sale, what happened was what we were really selling was actually the list. It was almost like we had books and we had content and we had staff that was qualified and all of that. Man, we were basic. I mean, we didn't own our building, so we weren't selling real estate. we were basically selling our list, our customers. And when you think about like a dental practice, they might be selling the equipment and the chairs and the building, but they're selling the clients, they're selling the customers. And so I really believe that you have to know where the value is in your company. And value for you, like back to Titans marketing, the value for me is not the value for anybody else. Whereas at Boardroom, I could create value, and we did. And we would have had some offers if we had taken the company to sale at some point. Yeah. But it was not a slam dunk, believe me.
Sure. Well, I on the podcast, sometimes I challenge and kind of open people's mind to thinking. So I want to challenge you a little bit and go back to the Mr. Schwartz. His product lives on. Now, I think you probably bought it out. There's no heirs getting royalties off of that. But
no, there are.
Oh, see, exactly right. So there's always that. And yet here's our point is, it doesn't matter what you want to do. It doesn't matter where you want to exit. It doesn't even matter what you want to exit with. It's just thinking about it in advance. And the last thing I'll say, and then I'm going to ask you a couple of quick questions, and then we're going to transition, is I don't care what business you acquire or sell. And I'm in a mastermind group with Roland Frazier and Ryan Dice.
I know that group, yes.
Yeah. And the due diligence for companies is their database, their list, so to speak, and the quality of that. Because if I'm asking $1 million for the company and I have a client who's 70% of that $1 million revenue, and they're not staying or they're going to leave if the owner sells, obviously the value of the company changes overnight. So
it's the difference between transaction and the transactions are important in that database. But the relationships are also important depending on
100%. Yep, 100%. And you can't transfer sometimes that relationship.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a couple of quick questions. What's been your biggest success, do you feel, in your journey as a business owner?
I've had some big like marketing programs that were just, off the charts, and I'm still proud of those, but they feel like, so 2014, actually I'll say 2004, not 2014. So 2004, 2005, 2006. But we switched, but the thing I'm proud of is that we switched gears and mastered a medium that we had no business mastering, although we did have business mastering it because we had mastered direct mail in such a way that we were able to master TV. And so we went to the infomercial world from the direct mail world. And that transition, I have a blog post that says, how insomnia made me $200 million. And it was like I was watching an infomercial one night, and I always wanted to get our products on TV. And I saw the model as I was watching it, how I could do it. It was, again, swipe file. It was a swipe file on TV at 2:00 in the morning on a snowy night in 2004 that I saw the model, and I was able to replicate it with our products and our business. And that took our company in 1 year. We went from like 70 million in revenue to 150 million in revenue with no addition to staff. We reworked the people because everybody was a great marketer in the company. So we learned to buy media on TV as opposed to buy media on mail. So it was like just the transition, the smooth, and there were headaches in there too, of course.
Sure,
but
sure.
So I'm really proud of that as sort of a case history. I'm also proud of the fact that one of the things I'm very proud of is that I was told by one of my top consultants, we were actually we had a book division at Boardroom that we created, and it was basically the greatest hits from our newsletters. It was like, these big encyclopedic books that we compiled from our newsletters. And he said to me, he goes, you're going to run out of content soon. You're not going to have book. And so I took that as like fighting words.
Right.
And I have this other blog post and a case history where I went to Barnes and Noble. That's a bookstore, by the way, for those who don't know. Not barnesandnoble.com. This was a physical bookstore.
Yeah.
I went there with a hand truck and talk about database and lists. I walked around Barnes and Noble with a hand truck and put all the books on the hand truck that would appeal to my 2-3 million name database of customers already in all categories that would be applicable: finance, health, executive, taxes, tax planning. And I bought all these books. I tell the story. I had a 1984 Toyota Camry. I put the books in the back, $900 worth of hardcover books in the back, and my tailpipe was like dragging on the ground. But then what I did, I didn't invent this, but I innovated on a concept. I knew I had lists. I knew I had interest. And so that I realized that I was a good dot connector. I could connect dots,
right?
Marketing sense. And so what I did was I brought all the books back. I had my editors look at them. I said, which books would you be proud to put our name on? Of course, not many, because they had such pride in the boardroom,
Sure,
name.
sure.
But a little too much pride. We need to do a little more marketing, right?
Right.
So, but any books that they felt decent about, then the key things, I took them to my copywriters and said, which of these books could you write incredible sales letters for? Like, the books had to be marketable in direct mail. And basically, I developed an entire division of books that were sitting collecting dust at Barnes & Noble into a direct mail book division of books that were not being sold anymore. And we created a whole new market for them. In one case, we sold $1 million worth of one book that was selling, $20,000 a year at Barnes & Noble. And all I had to do was pay a 5% royalty, and the publisher was thrilled. And I also reworked the book. The book was maybe a soft cover, and I made a hard cover, so I could charge $39 for it instead of $17 on the shelf of Barnes & Noble. Plus, I added premiums and bonuses. So the innovation there was what I didn't invent anything. I mean,
right.
But I really, I was really proud of that. I was really proud of the TV thing, and I was also, I have some. Those case histories are the ones that stick out in my mind.
So let's flip it upside down, and then I want to talk to you about how you're specifically helping business owners today and what they should be thinking about. What's been your biggest challenge, or some might say failure or opportunity, but where did you struggle in that journey the most, and what did that look like?
Yeah, I had quite a few.
We all do.
Yeah, we all did.
Yeah.
One of them is actually off of the biggest success, the infomercial success, because I started reading my press clippings. People were saying like, wow, Boardroom, this company came out of nowhere. Infomercials are supposed to be 1 out of 20.
Right.
1 out of 20 work. We got 3 of our first 4 to work big time. And then I said, man, this is easy.
I've arrived.
Yeah, I've arrived. And the next 9, to the tune of like, $1.5 million, all just went in the toilet.
Right.
Just like we got beer strong, we got, we were feeling our oats, and we said, okay, we can do this. We just have to slap something together. And so that's a good lesson in terms of, because I've always had a lot of humility, but I think you can tend to lose it when you see your successes staring you in the face. Another big failure in the company and me was that we probably sold, I don't know, over my time at Boardroom, let's say we sold $1 billion, probably was more than $1 billion, but we sold at least $1 billion worth of business. But we did it $39 at a time, meaning that we had newsletters at $39, we had renewals at $39, we had yearbooks at $39 with renewals, and we had one-shot books at $39. We never had an ascension program. Like, where's the higher priced product?
Right.
And then when the internet came along and I started looking at digitizing our products, I was met with resistance from people in the company. That's when I eventually left. I left in 2015 when, digital courses were all the rage, and I had a lot of ideas. And at that point, Marty was gone. I couldn't implement what I wanted to implement. So I had to leave, which was sad for me. But I realized that I had spent a lot of years like not figuring out that, you can, and we did well. I mean, doing over $1 billion worth of business, $39 a time, is nothing to sneeze at, but it's so much harder. If we had a $1,500 course or product, it'd be so much easier. So that was
Right.
I think that was a big fail on my
Yeah.
part and the company's part to not, and at the time, I'm not going to blame everybody else, but no one else was really into ascension like that. And these
Sure.
were four masterminds and going from $1,000 coaching group to a $25,000 coaching group. That stuff was just at the infant stage when I was realizing it. But we had so many opportunities to do higher priced products with more stuff, and it was a epic fail in my
Yeah.
the company never went bankrupt. The company always did well.
Sure.
The margins were always so tight, and it was
Yeah.
much more
Yeah.
difficult. So that was a big I'd call that one of my biggest failures.
Well, Brian, you mentioned something, and it reminds me of I'll say potential consulting client that we worked with about 9, 10 years ago. And, people give consultants a hard time, and yet consultants have the opportunity to look at something in a different way, and they're not attached to the outcome, and they don't have the biases. And I remember this individual sitting in our conference room, and this individual was referred to me by the CFO, who knew the company was was struggling and in trouble. And at the end of the day, he realized what he needed to do, and that was to hire us. And he chose not to, and that was his choice. But what he did do was hire a consultant in the field that he was in. And what happened is 6 months later, the company went bankrupt. And this was a very significant player in our market in a certain niche industry where they literally controlled that market 90 to 95%. And 6 months later, they were bankrupt. And that's the blind spots that we all have, right? And if we're not getting that outside advice or not following, other businesses where we could apply those things to our business,
Sometimes you can be too close or too far, but
yeah,
you need to have the right feedback loops, need to have the
yeah.
right people in your corner. I do a ton of that, and I teach a lot of that too.
So let's shift gears here in the remaining time that we have, and I want to talk to you about the premise is this. I'm a business owner. There's business owners listening to this conversation. And, let's go to the small to medium-sized business owner. It could be, a significant sized business owner. But they hear all this, and there's so many things, so many, places for them to go and different things they could do, whether it's pay per click and social media and this and that and the other thing. And, that business owner, I think, gets overwhelmed. And so they, make money and maybe they grow their business, but they never get to where they want to get to because many times they need to scale it to do it. And so talk to us about your approach with a business owner and what you're doing today to help them to grow their business, scale it, or even create higher margins without, scaling it massively. Like, what are you doing to help them?
Right. So it's basically, I start with the premise that marketing isn't everything, it's the only thing. And I don't say that to be facetious, I don't say that to be smug, but
Yeah.
if you're not, if you've got something to offer the world, why not offer it to millions as opposed to dozens?
Sure.
To get there is not it's not a linear path.
Right.
So there's so many aspects to it in terms of, in my book Over Deliver, which now I'm currently right now doing an Over Deliver boot camp where I'm walking people through all the elements of my book, which talk about lists, and it talks about offers, and it talks about creative and copy, and it talks about customer service and fulfillment as marketing functions. You've got to chunk it down. It's not like one business, one medium. It's not like the most dangerous number in business is one.
Right.
One medium, one employee, one product, one promotion. Can't be. So
Right.
multi-channel marketing is everything. However, multi-channel doesn't mean that you have to be everywhere. There are ways to not be everywhere, but look like you're everywhere. And that's what I teach. So I have one of my mentors and good friends, Perry Marshall, great marketer, has something called Maze 2.0, which I'll explain quickly. It's 2 axes. And on one axis, it says, it's online, offline. And on the other 2 axes, it's live and recorded. So now you have 4 boxes, right? So something that's recorded and offline is a book. something that's recorded and live would be a YouTube video, a live YouTube video or a live cast.
An event.
Online and recorded would be a webinar, a recorded webinar. So basically, but if you plot, and I also go with the premise, I just taught this in the Over Deliver boot camp today, as a matter of fact, that advertising opportunities are now infinite. When I was marketing in the, in the go-go 80s, before, in the prehistoric times of marketing, we had direct mail, we had print advertising, we had radio, TV, package inserts, and some other media. It was finite. There were only like certain places where you could advertise. You could advertise on the board or whatever, but there was only certain places. Now, advertising opportunities are infinite, and they're getting more infinite, even though infinite is infinite. Can't get more infinite. And so what's happened today is that it's, as you already hinted at, is that the average business owner is just bombarded. Oh, should I be on Facebook? Should I be on YouTube? Should I be on Instagram? Should I do direct mail? Should I do postcards? And it's overwhelming. So
it is.
So my contribution to the marketing industry, especially for smaller businesses and mid-sized businesses who want to get bigger, but not throw good money after bad on bad consultants and bad media and inappropriate media, and do it the right way. That's what I do. I mean, basically, I do hot seats within my masterminds where they get on there and they say, I've got this product, I have a supplement that is, it's a mushroom supplement for energy. How can I position it? Where should I advertise? And you get all the suggestions, and then you have to narrow it down. And the beauty of that Maze 2.0 that's interesting, when you plot every possible media and every possible advertising opportunity within those 4 quadrants, you basically need to, Perry says you should pick at least one in each quadrant, because that'll give you a little offline, a little online, a little recorded, a little live. But then I say maybe 2 in each quadrant, but that's still not the infinite amount of possibilities. So you need the right coaching for that, and you need to have the right consulting for that. I am not a consultant at all. I mean, when I hung out the shingle for Titans Marketing, I specifically said I am not a consultant, because that sounds like I'm perpetually unemployed. I mean, anybody who says they're a consultant, they're usually, in between jobs or unemployed. But I do consider myself, a marketing education company resource that has access to the best of the best in each of those. Like I always say, it's the what before the who, before the how. There's a book, Who Not How, written by Dan Sullivan, which is great. Yes. But I'm more about the what first. Like, what's the what? You have to know what the whats are. So what's a what? A what would be Facebook advertising. A what would be YouTube advertising. A what would be advertising on Amazon. A what would be direct mail. A what would be radio advertising. So I bring all the what to my people, to my group. And they listen to the what, they listen to the person, the expert, they think about it, they talk about it. And then you don't just jump in and now advertise on radio because the radio expert said radio is the best thing since sliced bread. You don't do it that way. But you need to know what the whats are. Then you got to look for the who. And the who in each of those whats is that's where the rubber hits the road. And that's where I come in. Because I can decipher based on what I know about the companies in my masterminds and the people that I coach, that I think your product is perfect for snippets on Instagram. It's just perfect. And then we figure out a test program on Instagram, and not only Instagram, it could be one of 4, right, in the quadrant.
Right.
And that's the process. It's sort of like the other part of the process that's really important is to assess your assets in advance of anything you do. So you have to know what you own or what you can own. Remember I talked about going around Barnes & Noble with a hand truck?
Right.
I didn't own those books in Barnes & Noble, but I ended up kind of owning them because I was able to license them and then sell them and make, millions and millions of dollars. I created a $40 million book operation out of that's going around Barnes & Noble in a hand truck. So there is an incredible leverage in the make or buy decision that you have to make. So you have to decide, am I gonna make this product or am I gonna buy this product? It doesn't matter. If you buy it and it's a white label product and you put your name on it, that is just as good as making it from scratch, and it's a lot cheaper. Now, if you want to make it from scratch and then develop all the ancillary products, that's another decision you need to make. And those are the kinds of things that I coach people through. The biggest mistake that most entrepreneurs make, especially, high level creative entrepreneurs, is that they all have ADHD, which is not it's actually, there'd be no entrepreneurs without ADHD. So it's not an affliction. It's not. I mean, Ned Hallowell, who's one of the top authors on ADHD, says, ADHD is a blessing. You just have to get it under control. That's why things like Maze 2.0 is basically to get the entrepreneur's brain to focus on a few things and not everything. Because once you try to do everything, then you do nothing.
Sure.
So that's kind of my premise and how I coach. And I can get into the nitty gritty with them also. It's like that example with Instagram. I mean, I didn't even know 6 months ago, I thought Instagram was, my daughter is a dance professor, and she choreographs dances of her students. And she's on Instagram all the time, posting the stuff. And I said, oh, it's nice. I didn't even, and here I am in marketing, and I knew Facebook advertising, I know YouTube. I didn't realize Instagram is its own animal. It's its own thing. It's like you have to figure out how to use that medium the best way possible. And you got to do it with snippets. You got to get people to text you with a keyword. Then you get them on your email list. There's a whole way to do that. And once I learned that from someone, now I brought it to my mastermind group. I brought it as one of the Watts that could be a choice, a media choice for somebody with a small to mid-sized business who wants to grow. So the growing and scaling comes along for the ride. But the ride is really the research and doing diligence, just like when you're exiting a company, right? We said before about the due diligence and the long runway. Marketing's the same way.
Yeah.
You got to be able to you got to do the research. And, because entrepreneurs are impulsive, they're going to just jump as soon as they hear something that sounds good.
Right.
And that's one of the cautions. And that's why when they work with me, I put the cautionary flag up often. I always say, I know you want to get rich fast, but getting rich slowly is so much more satisfying. I call it patient marketing. Now, some people call me the director of sales prevention because I developed the relationship over a long period of time before I go in for the jugular and make the sale.
Sure.
But that's a relationship sale, not a transaction sale. And those are the ones that last a lifetime. In fact, the subtitle of my book, Over Deliver, is Build a Business for a Lifetime, Playing the Long Game in Direct Response Marketing. Yeah. And every one of those words was chosen for a reason. It's not about one-hit wonders. It's about the long game. It's not about general advertising. It's about direct marketing, direct response marketing, meaning measurable, accountable advertising. So everything and building a business is not building a product. It may be on Shark Tank once in a while, but building a business is not building a product. It's not building a promotion. People have a winning promotion, whether it's on TV or on radio, or they have something on an affiliate network or on YouTube, and they're selling a lot. And okay, what are you going to sell next? What's the next product? What's the renewal? What can you build on?
Sure.
And a series of one-hit wonders is one way to run a business, not my preferred way.
Right. So let me ask you, and I know this is going to be a tough one, but I'm just interested in your answer. I know that there's not one answer, okay? But if I were to say to you, Brian, what do you feel like right now emerges for most companies as an area that's got a high ROI? So if you took most companies across the board and you looked at all the places they could advertise, what do you feel like is one of the best ROIs for a company right now? And I know that's a tough, unfair question, but
I'll give you some examples. So I would say that for like a personality run business, I think YouTube is one of the real stars, media
Okay.
stars, because you can do it without you can do paid YouTube advertising, but you can also do organic YouTube advertising. And YouTube is video. You can repurpose a lot from other areas. So I think YouTube is one that keeps coming up and coming up. I think.
So let me, you know what, I'm going to interrupt you because I should have asked a better question. So let me do this if I can. Just indulge me a second. Landscape company. Where's the best place?
I would say a landscape company. So now you're talking about geographical.
Okay.
So now you're talking, you're not going to, if you're a landscape company in, my town in Connecticut, you're not going to do landscaping in Minnesota. So,
Correct.
right. So immediately you have to assess your geographical area
Okay.
of note. Now, I think, especially if your landscaping services have a nice price point that you can build on top of it, I think something like direct mail, which is a forgotten medium for most people, could get you the best ROI because, and I think, but even things like, old-fashioned telemarketing, old-fashioned knocking on doors. I mean, it sounds silly.
Right.
Always talking about Facebook and scaling and YouTube, but for local businesses, there are so many techniques within the local business where you can get someone. I'll give you a good example. How about a used car lot? So there was this used car lot that it was at a Dan Kennedy conference as well. And this guy who has a used car lot came up to me and he goes, I send out a postcard every week to everybody in a 50-mile radius or 25-mile radius of my lot with all the cars that are now on the lot. Like he gets more used cars every week. And he said, I get people coming in, some people not coming in. I said, I got a better idea for you. Why don't you become the expert in used cars first? Because used cars are an episodic deal. I mean, you're not buying a used car every week. And the fact that you're doing a weekly mailing of a postcard, you may hit that one week when someone's ready to buy a used car, but odds are most weeks during the year, they're not buying a used car. Same for landscaping.
Yeah.
What you want to do is become a trusted advisor. Now, you say trusted advisor, used car salesman, they don't go together. But you can create it.
Right.
What about if you are the used car salesman that says, you know what, I'm going to go out into my area, invest, and do a little newsletter. And the newsletter has nothing to do with selling cars. It has to do with it's information. So it's sort of like, this is info marketing. So this is like, I'm going to do an article on how to spot a lemon in a used car lot, or how do you know the used car salesman is lying, and write an article about that.
Right.
Now, most used car salesmen could write the best article about those kinds of things, theoretically, but they don't think about the information. They just think about selling cars.
Right.
And the beauty of that is that once you get them on your list, your email list, or you send out a print newsletter once a month or something, but you don't even have to. You can get them onto your email list with a QR code quickly, and then you can blog to them once a week, the used car tip of the month. And at the bottom, you can say, by the way, we just got a new, 89 Chevy Malibu in, with 19,000 miles. So you can sell within it, but you're selling the information. It's value-based marketing. It's information marketing. I had another one with a personal injury attorney. So this was in Indiana. I don't know if the rules are still the same, but there were this guy who's a personal injury attorney in Indiana. Could be a landscaper, could be anything, right? So I'm trying to give you some analogies.
Yeah, no, I love it.
So the personal injury attorney says, as every time there's an accident, 30 days after an accident, there's a public list of everybody who reported a car accident. So every attorney gets that list. And what do? They plaster with postcards and mailings, 1-800, accident, been in an accident, 1-800, sue them or whatever. So I said to this guy, you want to stick out? Be the information guy, be the trusted advisor. You may not get the first one.
Right.
You'll get the ones going down the road. So I said, I did the same thing, do a little blog, newsletter, send out. And again, if you're talking about a geographical area, you don't have to saturate it right away. You can do it, you can titrate it in smaller amounts first. So you don't spend all the money at once, and you see if there's any life at all. But once you get a list of people who you can write to and blog to and deliver information to, now you're on your way to relationship marketing. You're on your way to not just transacting. You want to transact. I'm not a nonprofit. I'm not.
Yeah, exactly.
Not advice for nonprofits, but it's advice that can last you a lot longer than selling one Chevy Malibu on a used car lot.
So we're gonna wrap up, Brian. I've got a quick question for you, yes or no, and I just want to see if you like I think the way that you do. Let's just say not you think the way that I do. We'll say I think the way that you do. In direct response, yes or no, is the QR code the most underutilized thing?
No.
No?
It's more utilized today than ever before, and it's getting better. And the technology is much better.
But that's my point.
Oh, yeah,
that's my whole point.
But it's not. When you see the most underutilized, I mean, frankly, I think believe it or not, people rely on their website much more than anything else, and their landing page. But QR codes are good because you can get right to the landing page.
Right.
There are situations where a phone number can work too. So
sure.
Phone numbers are underutilized. But yeah, I think the QR code is underutilized. For sure.
You mentioned earlier the direct mail, and I just yesterday got this home magazine, and it just shocks me. They spend all this money on these ads. The phone number's super tiny, and they don't have a QR code. That's just me. So, okay.
I think you make a good point. Every ad should be direct response regardless, and QR code enables an ad to be direct response. Absolutely.
Well, you tie in the free report. I remember when I started real estate back in 1990, that was the big deal, free reports. And we didn't have QR codes back then we had to bring them to, even when I started, websites were just starting. But it blows my mind.
I'll rephrase my answer. I would say you have a good point.
Yeah. Well, and just go back to COVID. Like when you were eating someplace, like every place was, QR code because nobody wanted to touch the menus.
I think COVID was good for.
Oh, I agree.
QR codes, absolutely.
Yep. Okay, so if somebody wants to reach out to you, find out, you've talked about a lot of things that you offer. Where is the best place for them to do that right now, Brian?
Well, to spend no money and to do nothing and to just become a member of my online family. And I don't say that lightly. It's not my list. It's my online family. You go to briankurtz.net, BrianKurtz.net. There's an opt-in. You get a free interview with me and Perry Marshall. Two of the stories I tell in that interview. One is the one about how insomnia made me $200 million, and the one about hand truck at Barnes & Noble, and then another one.
Love it.
So it's the real nitty-gritty details of those.
Sure.
Things. And so you get that interview and you end up on my online family. I blog every Sunday and Wednesday. Wednesday is an installment of my podcast, and Sunday is just a blog post about my musings in the direct marketing world. And if anybody who would want to buy my book, which I make no money on, but if they go to overdeliverbook.com, you go there and follow the instructions. You either go to Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, you buy the book, you come back, you put your order number in, and the bonuses alone there for a $20 book, which I don't make any money on,
Sure.
They're unbelievable. There are, there's a swipe file, going back to swipe files from Dan Kennedy. There's a full day DVD of a day I did with Perry Marshall, who I've mentioned here today. Jay Abraham, who I mentioned. There's a course that he spent $200,000 on to create. The whole course is there digitally. There are 19 keynote speeches that Jay Abraham has given. This is all on the
all there. Yeah, for the book.
Just buying the book. Yeah. So that would be, if you don't want to spend $20, don't go there. You want to go for free, briankurtz.net. But if you don't want to be a cheapskate and get thousands of dollars worth of bonuses some of them are priceless. In fact,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
there are
Yeah.
2 PDFs of books that are out of print by 2 of my mentors in direct mail, Dick Benson and Gordon Grossman, and both of them, the full PDF is at overdeliverbook.com.
Wow.
Only place
Wow.
you can get those books. So that's the best way to find me. And then once you're in my world, you'll hear about my boot camps and the books I sell. They're all educational. I don't do affiliate marketing, so I'm not selling a bunch of other people's products.
Right.
It's not part of my model. I'm not saying
Sure.
I just don't do it. And I also I will sell things from other people that are educational. I never take a commission. I basically give the commission as a discount. So if someone's gonna sell something in my blog and they're giving a 50% affiliate commission, I say, I don't want the commission, just give a 50% discount to my online family. And that's the only way I'll do it. So it's a really good place.
Yeah.
It's a good list, AKA online family, to be in.
Yeah. Well, talk about over delivering. Wow. Brian, you've been amazing today. Oh my gosh, we could probably spend hours together. And I absolutely believe you brought value to our listeners today.
I hope
And we so appreciate your time and sharing. And I trust a bunch of our listeners will go and take advantage of that offer because it is amazing. It truly is. And so thanks everybody for listening. We appreciate your support. Go to your favorite podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. Download the podcast. Please share it with other individuals because we want to help more business owners get to that destination. Otherwise, they should just go get a job and get paid and not have to lay awake at night about meeting payroll and all the things that they lay awake at night about. So thanks, everybody. Have an amazing day. Brian, thanks again.
Thanks, Pat.
Yep, take care.
Thank you for joining Destination Business Freedom with Pat Mancuso. May the insights and strategies shared guide you towards financial prosperity and personal freedom. Continue to navigate boldly. Until next time, keep transforming challenges into achievements. Farewell, and stay the course.